Oh, YouTubers, how's it going? We're doing something just a little different today. Now I know it's been a while and I've been shuffling through how I want to do this and what I want to do, but that doesn't mean I can't review a game. Today we'll be looking at Mega Man X Command Mission for the Nintendo GameCube. Normally I would use a door to indicate a shorter review like SSX or NBA Jam, but I'm still testing things out and this game's a little special. Also, no intro, this game already has one and I can't top it. Oh, Mega Man X. My first game was Mega Man X6. Don't judge me, it's fun and I like it. I just love your high-paced shooting and your wall jumping on one wall and your boss killing and item getting and it was great. And now all of that's in 3D. I just can't wait. What is this? I don't even... You know, when I first bought this game, I was expecting something along the lines of this game series. Not this game series. I mean, the Mega Man franchise has already dipped well more than its toes into the RPG elements. Some games more than others. But this is a cannonball. A very straightforward cannonball that gets everything wet. Let me say this right now. I'm not a big, turn-based RPG player of any sort. My most turn-based played game is Pokemon. But, I did play some Final Fantasy X, and these games share a lot of similarities, so suck it, life. You didn't get me this time. I have experience. Now, the main part of an RPG is the story, apparently, because, that's the first thing people tell you about. I mean, they'll only tell you about game mechanics if something crazy happens. He suplexed a what? A train. Ghost train. Oh, okay. Right. Yeah, that is amazing. But not as amazing as the first time you told me. Or the 10th time. Or the 1000th time. But hey, I still feel the same way as that 9000th time that you told me. Command Mission story isn't anything to write home about. It's pretty basic. X-Zero and new character Shadow, not the ultimate life form, gets sent on a mission by Colonel Reddips to stop the rebellions in Giga City led by Epsilon. They come across face to face in the first few minutes actually, but X and Zero get caught off guard and betrayed by Shadow. No surprise. X then takes drastic measures to escape, and is then found in a resistance group who are fighting the rebellion. Through trying to find more people to help and trying to handle the rebellion, X gets a multitude of allies along the way. He also loses some, while others are a bit relenting to join the group. Zero! And pretty standard story, some characters die, betrayal, there's twists, there's turns. The story won't blow you away, but it's very solid. If the writing has one fault, it's that the characters don't stand out unless they're X or Zero, meaning that they don't get any extra lines out of the chapter that they are introduced in. It's kind of sad because I thought the writing in the story was at least halfway decent. I liked it. The characters were fun. Now we're getting into the gameplay. Oh man, this is gonna be fun. Okay, there are two modes of games. You have an overworld field and a battlefield. The overworld field is kind of broken into stages, like the classic games. Each stage is a new chapter, and once you have access to the Hunter's Base, that will be your hub area before each and every chapter. You will buy weapons there, and you'll get some other items that I'll get into later. Don't be surprised that you'll have to solve puzzles in the overworld and chapter areas. You also get a dash for getting items from crystals and to dodge traps. Now that I think about it, every stage has a level gimmick. From moving radar to locks to timed battle areas, so nothing genre redefining here. Ooh, next up's the battling system. So much information will be fed. Keep your ears open. If you played anything like Final Fantasy X that came out in the following years, you're probably familiar with the conditional battle system. You're giving an atlas and shown who will be making the next move. Like this, it means that everyone won't have the same amount of turns. Speed characters tend to have a bit more. You're also able to switch party members out on the fly. You can also do a handful of things to affect the act bar with skills and tools. It also shifts the things from timing your attacks to complex strategy from earlier RPGs. In Command Mission, the act bar is also a health bar. That doesn't sound like much, but I'll get into that later. The act bar is in the lower right hand corner of the screen. In the bottom left of the screen, you have your party's Li meter and their Wii meter. And I just realized I'm gonna have to use the full terms. Li is your life energy, health, but Wii is your weapon energy and acts more like your magic. At the start of battle, your weapon energy has a set amount. When it comes to a character's turn in battle, the weapon energy will rise, again, to a set amount. It differs from character to character, and it allows them use of their sub-weapons and their action triggers. At the top of the screen, you can find your main methods of attack, your main weapon, sub-weapons, and action trigger. Your main weapon will immediately end your turn after an attack. Duh. But if you use your sub-weapons, you can choose to attack again or end your attack. Most sub-weapons use up weapon energy to use them. In fact, I think the only one that doesn't is a generator that gives you more weapon energy. In the heads-up display, it will also show you how much weapon energy is needed for a sub-weapon, and it will light up if you're able to use it. Some are for attacking, others are for status elements, some are for personal support, like the generator. A good amount of the support ones can stack from turn to turn, but you have to cancel your attack and use it again in the next turn if you only have one available. Finally, there's the action trigger. The action trigger is a character's special move. Once you have 50% of a character's weapon energy, you can use it. The more weapon energy you have, the better it will be. It can range from having more power or more time to input a button command. Each action trigger has different commands for each character, and it could have more time put into directional input or slowing down a slot reel. Yeah, we've seen this before. Ugh. The action trigger is the ultimate attack, and as such, it's a long cooldown. And that's all there is in the main hub. But there's still more to go. Haha, people, seriously, you thought I was done? This is a turn-based RPG. Of course I'd spend pretty much the whole time reviewing how the battle works. Now there's other two crucial things to battle that are Hyper Mode and the Final Strike ability. Hyper Mode is a character's ability to transform in battle. They have a set amount of turns they can use this for, so use it wisely. They get a stat boost and some special abilities. Let's take X for example. Normally X is an S attacker, which means he attacks from a distance. S stands for shot. In Hyper Mode, he becomes a C attacker. C stands for combat. He gets up close and physically hits them, but with a bonus fire attribute and a normal attack for his action trigger. See, you gotta know little things like that. Marino, however, gets a speed boost so big that it might as well be special ability, because later in the game she's the only one with the turn during her Hyper Mode. Finally, there's the Final Strike ability. Thank God. You can only use this when 3 party members are available on the field. Once you take out 75% or more of the enemy's health at the time of attack, you enter a Final Strike. Every party member will start to dogpile on the enemy and wreck his shit. Final Strikes also give you extra weapon energy and force metal energy. You can also be used on more than one enemy at a time, giving you more time to use it and, well, more enemies to use it on. Duh. It can be cancelled if needed. Don't know why. I mean, there are situations, but anyway. It will most likely be the way you take out bosses, really. It will also be the way to take out that giant Matul in the mines area if you do it when you're first able to get to it. That fucker has the highest defense in the game. Man, it's such a chore to kill. Wow, that's it with everything battle mechanic related. There's just so much more this game offers, like the force metal creation and the force metal generator. And when I think about it, the force metal generator is the heart of a little robot nurse girl who was created by a platypus professor robot. You make sense of that? Force metal is basically the equipment of this game. You know, they give you elements of resistance, the normal stat boost, they're even like special items. They can also raise your drop rate, stuff like that. And you know, only some force metal can be used by some characters, but there's even more gimmicks. See, each character has a certain amount of slots for force metal, and even then, they have a certain amount of force metal that they can hold at a certain time. Each force metal has a value, and each characters have a total value. If all of the force metals in your slot is higher than your total value, you'll have a bad status effect at the start of battle. But don't worry, you can also level up to increase that set amount of force metal that one can carry. Now the force metal generator can make just about any force metal, and it keeps a list on all of them. You use the force metal and items to make new ones. An example would be you use power plus 1s to make a power plus 3. The level of the force metal you are able to make is based on the level that the character Cinnamon who makes them. The higher the level she is, the better the force metal you can make. The higher the force metal, the more force metal energy you need to make it. Force metal energy is gathered just like money in this game, so after every battle, and like I said before, if you use a final strike, it increases the rate of force metal that you get at the end of battle, so use it. And the final mechanic of the game, or at least the ones I can remember and care about, is that you can send mechanoids, enemies that you find in the field, back to the base and fix them up and send them back out to areas that you've already been to find secret items and goodies for you. It's a deployment system, and yes, you're taking enemies that you generally beat up on and making them work for you for free. So slavery. Robot slavery. Think about it. The mechanoids have 5 different stats: Fatality, Attack, Search, Intelligence, and Move. I'm sure you can guess what they all mean. Each of these stats are able to grow, and depending on where you send them, some may even get a little boost in growth. You can also make up a group of 3, but you can still send one off on its own. The different mechanoids have different stats, and some work better than others. The compatibility also seems to be affected by the area. The NPC that sends them out will make a small comment at the end of picking a team about their chances of finding something. So, you know, you can take that as a small little cue, and I like that. The actual things you find can range from normal items, money, secret keys, to rooms, secret items, and some force metal. Oh, also special stuff like art, music, and aesthetic changes to X's scarf. I like mine in green. It's normally red, but I don't know, green pops. Now that I mention it, you see all of this concept art, pictures, and music in the Sky Room at the Hunter base. So, check it out. You can also see special objectives and things done in the game, like how many enemies you killed, how fast you're going, how many times you used the final strike, highest output, achievements and trophy systems before achievement and trophy systems. I don't care, but some people get a boner for this stuff. I'm completely indifferent. Yada yada yada. This joke is running to the ground. Anyway, it's a mechanic that I really highly recommend that you use, because you can easily send a group off at the start of a chapter, and then you can pick up all of your stuff at the start of the next chapter and send another group off. And let's just say the hidden goodies in this game are really nice. There's a special secret in the first area, and I really like it, and I find it hilarious in context. Now, how do I feel about the mechanics and how they work with the game? It's okay. Unlike Pokemon, where it has the been there done that approach where each subsequent playthrough gets easier because you can counterpick like an asshole, this doesn't really fall into that trap because enemies aren't really prone to certain things like that. You learn that, you know, combat attacks work better on ground enemies and shot attacks work better on air enemies, but, you know, that's just to help, and you just miss otherwise, at least with the air enemies. And, you know, elements in this game, while they're there, I honestly don't think they help too much. At least not enough that I can clearly notice. It also doesn't have the other elements that some RPGs have, like giving you really tough enemies before you're ready to handle them because they need to find a way to add challenge. If you're really good at this game and you know what you're doing, you can breeze through it, but if you do mess up and not pay attention, you will pay for it. So I think the difficulty is just right for your second playthrough, but the first one will be hard, you won't know what to do, and you'll be frustrated. Now, I just based that off of my first playthrough, and while I think a lot of RPGs should really be based off your first playthrough, even though people will have different experience with it, you know, nothing really gets that first difficulty with an RPG than your first one. Because, come on, you're gonna know what happens next, you're gonna prepare better, and you're just gonna be better at handling it. Like I said before, some do throw really hard enemies at you, but you know what you're gonna do, and the worst case scenario is that you're gonna grind, especially with games like this. Unlike old Final Fantasy games where you have to practice timing down, this is completely strategy based. If all of your characters are up to stuff, there's one best strategy that you can handle it. There are other strategies that can, you know, also help, but even then, you probably know those if you're more comfortable with them, and it helped the first time, so it's probably gonna work the second time. Now, let's talk about the boss fights. Again, they're nothing new, but all of them genuinely stick out from each other. from Django's rather standard boss setup to Scarface, who will change what he'll defend and counterattack depending on what he was just hit with. The best part about boss fights in this game is that you get a bonus on how fast and I think how you defeat them. It will rate the amount of turns you took and the final attack, and you can get up to a 100% bonus. And I think the percent rises from a normal attack to an action trigger, and it goes even higher for a final strike, but I'm not completely sure. And to be fair, I only got 100% once. If there's one thing that I have to completely praise and gush over this game for, is this soundtrack. In fact, it may be my favorite Mega Man X soundtrack ever. In fact, it may be my favorite soundtrack out of the whole franchise of Mega Man games. And that's saying quite a lot. I mean, the battle themes, the boss themes, the overworld themes, oh, it's all so great. So basically what I'm saying is, suck it, Mega Man X fanboys. That soundtrack isn't as great as you thought it is, at least not comparatively to the whole series. Holding that way too high. It's awesome, but it's not that awesome. Overall, Mega Man X Command Mission isn't an RPG that's too different from anything else you've seen and played. In fact, I think it might be a little bit too straightforward for most RPG fans. The fact that it's broken up into areas doesn't give you much drastic in movement and area type. It's mostly boxy, and it's pretty straightforward. In fact, the only place where I got slightly lost in was the second to last area, and that's only because I'm distracted from going door to door. I hate that lock thing. I mean, there's a gauntlet maze where you can fight practically every enemy in the game, get items, get Zinni. There's secret bosses, secret weapons, new transformations, a secret shop where you can buy all of the best items in the game, fetch quests, basically in the form of getting new mechanoids, find part A for mechanoid B to be able to use them in the deployment system. It doesn't really do anything new, but what really ties this game over for me, and I think it will probably only be if you're a Mega Man X fan or a Mega Man fan in general, is all of the references to the old games. I think each enemy in this game is a Mega Man X enemy from past games. You even get a Mega Man boss rush at the end of the game. And I find it really charming that all of the items and stuff are robot related. Like a normal revive is called a reboot. That's really charming, and I really like that. Like I said, this game doesn't really do anything new, but what it does do is it takes a lot of elements from a lot of games, and it mixes them together, and it brings focus onto them. Let me put it this way, when I played Final Fantasy X, there was a lot of things to do in that game, and I didn't care for most of it. As long as it meant me going through the game and beating the last boss, I did it. If it meant anything else, any sort of distraction, I didn't bother with it. This game, on the other hand, I can go out of my way because I actively feel like everything's helping me to get to the end of my goal. The boss gauntlet, it's great for leveling up. The deployment center, I get stuff and I don't really have to do anything for it. That's the best thing ever. I mean, it gives me the feeling of putting in effort by setting up a team, making sure they work, sending them to the right place, leveling them up. But they do it themselves and I come back and get all the reward. That's the best feeling that I've ever gotten in a game. But overall, I think I have to give Mega Man X a 3.5 out of 5. And I think that's mostly because, well, I'm a Mega Man fan. And I like all the little nods to Mega Man history in it. And everything that's related. Basically, the charm gave it its 0.5 rating. It's pretty average, but it does stand out a bit on its own. And also, I think it's a perfect game for people who want to dip their toes into the RPG genre, get a feeling of what it's like, just slightly. A very great beginner's game.